were mentioned there with the Levites and priests. It's Nethinim, Nithiums. Anybody know who they are? I'll give you a second to check it out on your phones. Okay, the Hebrew word meaning to give or one's giving, that's a hint. Chapter 9, verse 2. One's giving, I thought it was the slaves for the temple. Okay. Okay, yeah, my version says Nithiums. Okay, yeah, so they were the slaves. I didn't know what that was, so I looked it up. And it's a Hebrew word meaning give or one given, which are the temple slaves. Verse 3, it talks about two tribes that were mentioned that were not from the tribe of Judah, that were in Jerusalem. And your hint is they're from Joseph. Yes. Yes. So they were also in Jerusalem, besides Judah. Chapter 10, we talks about the death of Saul and his sons. Again, who wants to talk about what happened to Saul in the battle? Okay, but first. Right, yeah, he was wounded, and then his armor bearer didn't want to kill him, so he ended up falling on the sword. The Philistines take Saul's head, and where do they put it? Okay, well, actually, it was in the temple of Dagon. Yeah, the sons' bodies were. So who gets Saul's head and the sons and give him a proper burial? It was the mighty man of one city. Yeah, that's right, Jabez Gilead. Okay. Chapter 11, we talk about the city that David conquers. What is that city that he conquers? Yes, yeah. And what do they call that city? City of David. Okay, and then we're told here how Joab becomes his chief captain. And what did he do to become his chief captain? I don't think we're told this anywhere else. I don't remember reading it anywhere else. What did David say would he do for the first person that would go into Jerusalem, capture it? Make him his chief captain. So that was Joab. Any comments or questions concerning David's mighty man? I thought it was interesting that 3 of these mighty men, they broke through the Philistines' camp to get David a drink of water from the well of Bethlehem. What did David do with this water? Yeah, risked their lives and everything for him, and then he pours it out. Pours it out to the Lord. Chapter 12 is more on David's army and mighty man. It's interesting how they use both hands. And I kind of got the impression they do this. I mean, one hand with a bow and the other hand they're throwing stones. Can you do that together? Well, I wonder if they're using their chest or something to hold a bow or something. And I don't know. Yeah, I read that and I kind of thinking, all right, but you use both hands, but they really need both hands to shoot the bow. Okay. Well, I don't know how they could do it simultaneously like that, but anyway. Chapter chapter 13 gives a little more insight on getting the ark back to Jerusalem. And it's interesting, chapter 13, verse 2, who does David call out all of Israel to come help him do this? This has kind of stuck out to me a little bit because they're moving the ark wrong, right? But yet it tells you there that he has all these Levites and priests that are helping him. You would think somebody would say, hey, I don't think this is the right way to move it. I don't know. But anyway, so David tries to get the ark to Jerusalem. What happens when it gets to the threshing floor? Yeah. Yeah. And what happens to Uzzah? Yeah, he ends up dying. Okay. So chapter 14 talks about the battle with the Philistines. What does David do every time before he goes into battle? Yeah. So the second battle with the Philistines, he's told not to go to battle, but circle around and wait until he hears marching on the mulberry trees. And what was that a sign that the Lord's doing here? Right. So in other words, he helped them win that battle. Chapter 15 tells about David getting the ark into Jerusalem. And what does he do here that's right this time? Okay, or the Levites actually carry the ark on their shoulders, right? Yeah. No. Yeah, and that's kind of puzzling because he has all these priests and Levites that helping him to get the ark. Why would somebody not just tell him, hey, this is not the right way to do it, David?
David actually said we did not consult the proper order the first time.
Yeah.
He didn't even blame others. He blamed
Himself.
himself and the priest for not. I guess they didn't read about how to carry the ark.
But you would think they would know that.
Would.
Yeah, I mean, the laws and stuff, they would. Yeah, that's true. Okay, so we get into David dancing, playing music, having a great time. Who will despise them for doing that? Michal, yeah. And I was thinking about her a little bit. Stormy relationship here. David's running around, fleeing from Saul for 10 years. Michal is given to another man in 1 Samuel 25, verse 44. She was returned to David in 2 Samuel 3, 13 through 16, probably forced when the power moved from Saul to David. She was probably forced to do that. So I think she probably had some bitter feelings, with David. Chapter 16 records David's songs of thanksgiving. Any questions on that song? It's pretty much the whole chapter. Chapter 16 ends by everybody going to their own house. And we pick up in chapter 17 Monday. Anybody got any questions on the scripture reading?
Good morning. If you're in your book, we are in lesson 15, and you can go ahead and pull your Bibles open or your electronic devices, whatever, over to Luke 14. That's where we will be. Going to look at the tower and the king going to war. At our last group meeting, we talked a lot about selflessness. And a lot of this really goes along with that. Before we dig in, Brother Chuck, would you mind leading us in a prayer? Amen. There we go. So at this group meeting, we were talking about this team me kind of perspective, and a lot of that conversation really does bleed over here. We're going to be talking about counting the cost, bearing our cross, and a lot of that we can't do if we've got number one as our priority. But that's what we hear. That's the water we're swimming in. It's all about me. This is self-help generation. Live your best life, where we'll see in these groups of verses, we really got to take our best life and crucify it and put that away. It's not do what feels right for you or prioritize yourself, like we hear social media and across the airways. This is part of Jesus' really radical change. This is the upside-down kingdom that he's been talking about his entire time so far. He's been talking about the kingdom of heaven, and it's not like these earthly kingdoms that we see. And we'll see some of these verses. They're really difficult. These are some of those verses you're not going to see printed on a mug. You're not going to see them crocheted on the wall. These are difficult sayings. So we'll unpack this, and we're going to go through all 10 questions, and hopefully we'll be challenged, ready to embrace the call of real discipleship and commitment. But let's look at the context first in 14, verse 25. Now great crowds accompanied him, and he turned to them. This is Jesus, by the way. Great crowds accompanied him, and he turned and said to them, if anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters, yes, even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not bear his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. This is pretty rough, right? So the crowds, he's got these great crowds around him. Why are these crowds here? I think you're all over it. Go ahead. Hey, that never hurts. Jonathan was talking about that last week. He doesn't turn down a free meal. Me neither. So I think you're all over it. If I'm there, and there's this guy that people are telling me he's going to be king, he's doing all these miracles, he's feeding people. If I'm going to hang out with him, life's probably going to be pretty good. I'm going to want to do that. I'm probably not going to expect him to say this. This is basically him trying to thin out the crowd, it almost feels like, right? If you're trying to amass a group to yourself today, you don't tell them this. If I'm trying to recruit you for a project, I don't look at you and say, hey, look, you're going to have to hate your family if you're going to be part of this. Really, everything that you want to do, you're going to have to really hate that. This is difficult. These are difficult sayings. So the obvious question is, does Jesus really want us to hate our family? No. Why do you say no? Okay. Absolutely. Go ahead.
So I would answer it very close to him, but I actually would say yes because he uses the word hate. And we sometimes downplay that word because I think we misunderstand what the word hate means in some context because of our 21st century idea of hate. The word hate can just simply mean to despise or look at something as worthless or worthless compared to something. And so that's, it is about prioritization. I think it's about what the word hate means. It's a Bible word.
Yeah. I think that's right. That's what I wrote down is hate by comparison.
Yeah.
Ex- right. Well, we hate them compared to how much we love the Lord, I think is what he's saying. And Jesus speaks in these really strong terms elsewhere. Doesn't he tell us to gouge our eyes out if we need to? Right. But he knows that sin doesn't come from our eyes, it comes from our heart, right? This is hyperbole. We should love the Lord so much that we, by comparison, despise our family. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just thinking too that this is mostly Jewish families. When you're following the Lord, you might have a lot of conflict with them.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be one way. One alternative would be, you got to put them first over your family.
Mm-hmm. We even know in our own lives, just looking about us, when people are pulled away from God, what's often one of the things that does it? It's our family, right? And we have to make that choice to put God first. Because he says we cannot be his disciple if we don't. Go ahead.
I remember years ago I was at a party and I was conversing with a person there, and I don't know what sprung up in the conversation, but I was basically just telling this young lady that I put God first and then my family very close second. And she kind of looked at me and kind of smiled almost mockingly and said, well, I would hope you put your family up there with God. And what she didn't understand because she wasn't a Christian was that when you put God first, it makes you the best husband or the best wife you can be to your spouse. But people don't seem to comprehend that.
Mm-hmm.
That's what makes you a great partner to your wife or husband.
Amen to that.
What makes you great at everything else too is you put underneath subservient to God.
Yep. So, go ahead.
And also, we have to look at this life as temporary. We don't know what tomorrow holds. And Jesus has the only words of eternal life. Nobody else does.
That's right. So he's got these two groups of people. He lists all these family members: our father, our mother, our wife, our children, brothers and sisters. We got to hate them. But then probably this even harder thing, we've got to hate our own life, even our own life.
Well, we're supposed to love ourselves, right?
I think we are. Man, I tell you, I think about myself all the time. I mean, all the time. Not that I think highly of myself. I just think about it dominates my thoughts. I almost don't think about anything else but myself. You can't be that way. We cannot be his disciple if we're putting ourselves first. These are hard sayings. Hard sayings. So this is the context of these two parables, really short parables, that Jesus gives us. Any other comments before we move on to the parables?
No man hateth his own flesh, but cherishes his flesh.
Mm-hmm.
But this is talking about something different. It teaches us that you need to go to the contrast of what's being said in order to understand
Mm-hmm.
what Jesus means.
That's right.
This is, as he said, putting God first, because having no other God, no other God, having no other God, you said you should love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul.
can't make a god of ourselves like King Saul may have. So let's look at the tower builder and the king preparing for war. This is verses 28 through 32. For which of you, desiring to build a tower, does not first sit down and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he's laid a foundation and is not able to finish, all who see it begin to mock him, saying, "This man, he began to build and was not able to finish." Or, what king, going out to encounter another king in war, will not sit down first and deliberate whether he is able with 10,000 to meet him who comes against him with 20,000? And if not, while the other is yet a great way off, he sends a delegation and asks for terms of peace. So I know that Jesus speaks plainly. If I had to read this like 5 different times in a couple of different translations, I guess maybe it's just I don't build a lot of towers or go to war. So somebody, and these are really short, somebody in their own words, just focus on the tower builder, not any spiritual meaning yet, kind of restate this tower builder parable. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Did people laugh at them? Like, I know you weren't there for all that long, but it is kind of laughable, even you talking about these half-finished skyscrapers. Mm-hmm. That's pretty good. We saw the same thing in Jamaica, not the skyscrapers. I don't know if they have any skyscrapers, but if you're going to build a house, that's just the way they don't do mortgages. Got to build it. That's excellent. Excellent. Thank you. What about this king going to war? Kind of restate that for me in some way.
Seems like the strategy he has to have. He's coming out to meet him with 10,000, with one that's coming out with 20,000.
Mm-hmm.
And you could do that, but you can't just go blind into battle without having a plan.
Right.
You got to know how to meet that 20,000 with 10.
Mm-hmm. Can't just assume you're going to win.
Can't just assume you're going to win. Maybe you don't go. Maybe you realize you don't have. Maybe you need more men
Yep.
to go. Maybe you got to rally more men to go.
Yeah.
But at least if you go with 10, you got to know what it's going to take to beat 20,000.
Right. He's saying, what good king wouldn't sit down and think about this first?
Yeah.
You're up against 2-to-1 odds. Nobody's just going to take those odds and just march out without thinking about it.
Yeah.
Right.
The second part of that was to say, I can't do that, lose my backward plan. To try, almost like I would see the delegation to make peace. So it's, I don't know if that's the plan. I don't know how to necessarily think about that in the terms of the fight. I don't know if that's the planning aspect or if that's a, I don't know.
But his whole point here is counting the cost. Remember this short context that we looked at is like, hey, this whole discipleship thing that you're signing up for is not all roses and rainbows. This is hard. You've got to count the cost. and it should force us to ask some serious questions about commitments and faith. Um, he doesn't want half-hearted followers who dabble in faith, maybe when it's convenient. He wants to have full surrender. Loyalty, I think, would be a good word. It goes beyond family ties or personal ambitions or even our own lives. And this is radical discipleship that goes counter to what our culture talks about today. He's flipping that on its head. So,
The last part is, you know what you're getting yourself into. It's just as something. You're getting into, it's not going to be empty and then no place. That ain't going to be something that's going to be only, that's only kind of thing.
right?
You're going to have both. Father's going to rise up in another son, sons and daughters. And the man both going to go to his own household.
He came to bring a sword.
That's one of the wishes. And the gospel doesn't have other to do with it, but it's, everything's going to be fine. You'll be. The gospel is very, very clear that you're getting yourself into. And you need to examine. You can't just take one verse and say, okay. You have to go and look at everything and get yourself hooked up with it.
If they have ears to hear, they'll hear it. We skipped verse 33 so far. So therefore, any one of you who does not renounce all that he has cannot be my disciple. This is after his parables, counting the cost. If you don't renounce all that he has, including our life, cannot be my disciple. So, our first question, you may find the answer in verse 26. Why does Jesus require greater loyalty to him than to one's family? I've already discussed this a little bit, but I thought it was the word why makes this question a little harder. Why? I like your answer better than mine. So she was saying your family can be wrong. So if we follow it, it's going to go against God sometime. Because I'm a simple guy. Honestly, I just looked at it as a definitional term. It's just impossible. If we're going to be a disciple, that just requires, that is the definition, that it requires greater loyalty to God than to our family, just by definition. But I like yours better. That kind of loyalty is rare, though. People are loyal to a lot of things. They're loyal to a cereal brand, or they're loyal to their families, or a sports team, or a career. God's asking us for loyalty to him. To make
About it is, to your point, people want to think that there's just this big basket of important things, but there's a hierarchy in there somewhere when it comes down to the nuts and bolts of it. Like, there's a totem pole in there.
absolutely,
And
there's,
inevitable.
yes. Have you ever seen believers more loyal to their family than to Jesus? You don't have to name any names. What does that look like, practically speaking? What happened? Did it end up well?
I think the walk away from Jesus. That's why it's really it's a shroud. You know, it's kind of like a horse. He has his own spirit. He wants to ride the trails by himself. You know, that's one thing. Somebody has to break the spirit to get them to do what they want them to do. And it's your outlook on life as far
I like the way Scott put it. Is if once we put God first, it's going to make us so much better in all of those family relationships. I didn't realize that Miss Betty had patiently worked with Les to bring him to God. What if she had allowed maybe it to turn out the other way around? You know, a lot of lives would look different. Go ahead. Mhm. Mhm. Right. 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 Mhm. That's a hard thing, but he's saying a hard thing. He is saying a hard thing, which is
In the context of the New Testament and the first 300 years of Christianity, there's so much hate and violence against Christians. A lot of violence. Started with the Jews and then on to the Roman Empire. And we're going to have to make some huge decisions. And for most people, that was straightforward. You have to make that decision. But you have to see, sometimes having your wife, your children, your family. You have to make a decision to either renounce Christ and follow Caesar or a drink offering to him, or
Mhm.
you have Jesus face to face. Love face to face. So there's a huge difference. And you don't know what that's like.
Mhm.
So really,
Right.
and you have to go through it.
Mhm.
So it was hard.
Well, he
Then
said,
when he left Thessalonica, those people had to stay there.
yeah.
He left. And, they would turn around, but here they are. He's worried about them and worried about their faith. And there they were still saved. Still saved no matter how violent people were against them.
Mhm. And we'll talk about it more in one of these questions, but he tells them to bear their cross. And that meant something to those people hearing that. That's not a pretty image, to bear your cross. It's 9:34. Let's move. Why does Jesus demand such loyalty that there is no middle ground? One either makes this commitment or he cannot be his disciple. What would y'all say to that?
I think we may just use another scripture where it says, you cannot serve two masters. We're going to be devoted to one and not the other.
Mhm.
It just doesn't matter. It's just the way we are as human beings. We're slaves to something. What's it going to be?
Mhm.
It's got to be God.
Correct. It's not like a 30-day trial to Netflix. We get we got to sign up for the whole thing. I did see somebody, and I'm going to mess this up. Somebody had a quote, went something to the effect of, the cost of salvation on the front end is nothing, but the annual subscription is everything. I thought, well, that's an interesting way to put it, because it does. It costs everything. But at the same time, it costs us nothing because Jesus did the hard part. Because no matter how well we do, we know that our salvation is thanks to Him. It's not, we cannot earn that. So this people just don't like being told what to do, though. And it doesn't matter how small the sacrifice is. People hate being told what to do. This story drives me crazy. So I won't even try to pretend like I don't have an opinion on it. the Starbucks employees are on strike because of their dress code. It's a black T-shirt. This is the new dress code, and they're striking because workers are unwilling to comply. They see this because we put on such a high shelf as Americans our personal autonomy, our liberty, our freedom. And if we have to sacrifice just a little bit of that, that's offensive. It's offensive that you would not let me choose what color shirt to wear. And I get it. I don't like being told what to do either. I really don't. I hate it. I hate being told what to do. When the car beeps at me to buckle up, I get angry because that car's telling me what to do. So I do. I get it. But we resist sacrificing even the small things, like a dress code, when it conflicts with our personal desires. Jesus is asking a lot bigger things. He's asking some really big things here. He's asking for everything. Surrender, complete surrender, just to give him the keys. He does not want lukewarm discipleship. What does he say about lukewarm discipleship in Revelation? Mm-hmm. That's how he feels about it. All right. We're cooking. Let's go. Question 3. What is cross-bearing? What does that mean?
In the Roman world, it meant actually bearing up under a great weight. You would carry this thing that you're going to be crucified on. So, in their day, they had a very big image of what that meant, as they, with Jesus, they would line up people down the street and mock the people that went by and carried the cross. So there's a lot of shame, humiliation involved in that. It's the worst thing one could imagine going through.
Mm-hmm. The author of our material talked about it not just being this symbol of death, which it was, but kind of like what you're saying, it's this shame, suffering, the humiliation of it all. Which really, with the parables, people were laughing at the guy with a half-built tower. If we go halfway, we're going to be humiliated and mocked too. I would much rather be humiliated and mocked with Jesus at my side than humiliated and mocked because I was trying to straddle the fence. Go ahead.
How do we bear our cross? How do we bear a cross today? And what is it? What does it look like when I'm trying to bear a cross?
That's a great question. Mm.
But if you look at what happens on the cross, you die. Because that's what you have to do, is you have to die to your will and be a new creation in that will come up out of your life.
What does that mean practically?
Well, it just means that you read God's word and you follow it. And if it overlaps something that you want to do, that's up to you to make that decision. Are you going to truly follow him? Or are you going to half follow him?
I think ultimately, I missed. Go ahead. Mm-hmm. that's dropping facts.
Then God bearing reproach, right? That's what Hebrews chapter 14, bearing his, he endured, understand that he endured that reproach, then we endure the same.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus said, they hate you, hate you, know they hate me. They hate me, and they hate you.
That's right.
So,
And,
bear
and ultimately, it could go back to what you were talking about earlier, that it could require our own physical life. There's still a tremendous amount of persecution across the globe against Christians. There's many Christians that fear for their lives. We're blessed that we're not forced to think about that. That doesn't mean we shouldn't think about bearing our cross by turning the phone off, or putting a book down, or turning the channel. You know, those are really practical things for us to think about. Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
All right, one more thing.
Yes.
I don't know what cross you're bearing. I don't know what cross Elizabeth or anybody else in here is bearing. But every one of us is bearing some kind of cross, whether it's visible or whether I know about it or not. And so we need to do whatever we can to encourage each other as we go through life. And, you know, everybody's got maybe a different cross to bear. And we need to encourage each other and at least pray for each other that we're able to stay on the right track.
Very well said. So I'm skipping ahead. I want to look at these last two verses. It was not part of the parables, but it's verse 34 and 35. So he's given us this context we look at, and then we have these parables. And then he says, salt is good, but if salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It is of no use either for the soil or for the manure pile. It is thrown away. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. What's that got to do with what we've been talking about? What's this have to do with self-sacrifice? What's this have to do with counting the cost? How is salt good? What is salt?
It loses our ability to take something better than in our life, help lead others to Christ. It loses our ability to work with if we had all the rest of our lives, somebody else is going to take it. So thinking about that.
You were perfect answer. Absolutely. If we do not count the cost and we only start our discipleship, but we don't stick with it, our salt has lost its flavor and it's useless. Go ahead.
I was also thinking, salt can't be put into in and of itself as part of being salt, but how does salt lose its taste? It comes out of losing people. It becomes lost in dirt or it becomes lost in something else. And so all we have to do to lose our taste is become so spread thin in other things that we aren't salt,
Yeah.
that we aren't truly this thing.
Yeah.
All we have to do is just be what it is.
I'll leave you with this. I was thinking about the song, I Have Decided to Follow Jesus. That's starting to build, right? That's putting the foundation. I have decided to follow Jesus. But part of that, I think, is the last verse. No turning back. No turning back. That's when we don't stick with it, and because we didn't count the cost, perhaps. Thank you very much for your kind attention.